Well, hello, good morning, Garden City Church. Good morning, great to be with you guys. Man, thank you guys for leading us. Sarah, thanks for leading the charge this morning. And so awesome to be with you. Hey, I want to introduce a friend this morning. And every time we introduce a friend, we make sure we give a warm Garden City welcome. But can we do a warm Garden City welcome for my friend Lauren? Lauren, come on up here. Okay, so you guys know, can you handle the third step? Is that awkward? We can go up if we need to. Is that good? Okay. If she goes down, it's my fault. These are narrow. Okay, so we've been introducing to you guys ministry leaders that we have in place here. And this morning, Lauren, you are leading the charge regarding hospitality here, which if anybody has attended Garden City for any manner of time, the one thing that everybody says about this place is that we are a hospitable bunch. So you're leading like the thing that we may do the best. Well, Lauren, tell us about hospitality and things that you're into and thinking about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, am I on?
No, you're not. There we go.
There we go. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so my name's Lauren. My husband and I, Dylan, have been coming here for 3 years now. You will probably recognize us by having our 10-month-old strapped on the front of one of us. But yeah, hospitality has kind of been something that I've grown up into. I'm the oldest of 9 kids. My family's done foster care for most of my life. So I kind of grew up in a home where values were really instilled of just opening our hearts and opening our homes to people. And I think especially within the context of the church, hospitality is so important because it's not just a reflection of who we are, as Brian said, but it's ultimately a reflection of God. And when we are welcoming to the people who walk in our doors, we are an extension of God's invitation for all to come. So I believe about this so much. I'm really passionate about this. And yeah, just excited to create spaces within the church where people feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally and relationally and spiritually. So tangibly right now, that looks like having people greeting, having people setting up coffee, having people at the welcome table in the back. So we're excited to be building that team and hopefully inviting more of you into that.
That is fantastic. So you were raised in a family of hospitality, where you literally opened up your family to people who were not a part of your biological family.
Yeah.
Right? So the cool thing here is when we talk about hospitality, obviously everybody thinks that's Sunday morning, but like we mean way more than that. Like we want to be a hospitable church on Sunday morning, of course, because we have guests that come and we want them to feel like they are the unique and magnificent creatures of the King that they are, right? But this for you is well beyond Sunday morning. This is something that you would long for us to live out Monday through Saturday in all of the places that we live, work, and play.
Definitely.
Super cool. Now, but what we need to get in line, right, as we're heading into the fall, is we need to make sure that we're doing an awesome hospitality job on Sundays. If someone here is interested in joining in, because we don't want any individual to come here and not feel as if they are a magnificent creation of the King, right? And so if anybody wants to join in with that on Sunday morning, how would they get in touch with you? How would they go about exploring that?
So I'm going to be at the welcome table after service, so feel free to come up and chat with me, and you can also reach me at hospitality@gardencityakron.com.
Awesome. So back table today, and then beyond today, hospitality@gardencityakron.com. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Big hand for Lauren. Thank you, Lauren. So cool. And then also, just want to remind you that our chili cook-off is coming up. Mid to late September, and it is a cook-off, meaning it's a competition. And so we want to see the best chili in the house. We want to see all the chilies in the house come forth. And if you've got a special chili, then you can sign up to bring it in 2 ways, because we want to know who's bringing what. But there's the card that last week was on your seats. Now they're at the back table. There's a QRL code on there. You just put your phone on there, and then that will help you to sign up and put your information in. If you're not that technologically savvy, then you can just go to the back table and say, hey, here's my name and here's what I'm bringing. Here's my chili, okay? So either way, we want to know who's bringing what, and then that day, it's going to be just like a festive time after church. We're going to head out into the parking lot. There's going to be inflatables and fun things and chili and probably some music and kids running around. So we just want this to be just a church family hangout time, and we also want the chili to be good, right? And that's on all of us. So, and I think there might even be a prize. Jen, is there going to be a prize for the winning chili? A trophy. A real trophy? That's cool. Okay, so I'm into motivations like that. I just want to know, is that a trophy that you get to keep, or will that like go to somebody else next year and the year after that and the year after that? To hand it off? Okay, and maybe like your name would go on a plaque and there'd be a running list of chili winners. That sounds awesome. Okay, so that just... Say that again? Oh, Pastor Coach is throwing down a challenge. You just said put his name on there. Wow, okay. Well, if anybody thinks they can unseat the king, Pastor Coach Kemp, you are welcome to try. But apparently we got a good chili coming, all right? So that's happening. And then last thing is this. You guys know we're working on a house just 3 houses down on Work Avenue. Drywall finishing is happening this week, and in 2 weeks, what we'd love to do is put together a little painting crew on a Saturday morning, and just get as many of you as have a steady hand or can roll. There are 2 different skill sets there, but we love to get some people in the house painting, and more information on that coming, but just want you to make a mental note now. If you're a painter, in 2 weeks on Saturday, we're gonna paint the house. Cool? Sound fun? Yes, super fun. Okay, now, we talk about Garden City hospitality welcomes because we are a hospitable bunch. I'm going to need you guys to put your hands together for our new guest this morning. And the new guest is Dandelion. Can everybody say hi, Dandelion? Okay, that's the lamest welcome of any guest we've ever had on stage before. Okay, so here's Dandelion, and Dandelion and I did not rehearse this, so we have no idea how this is going to go down, okay? But here's why Dandelion is up here. I want to explain to you the superpowers or superpower that the Creator has given to Dandelion, okay? Probably many superpowers, but here's one in particular that I want you to understand. If we were to get up close and personal, and you're welcome to after the service, but Dandelion's back legs are obnoxiously large, right? Her back legs are super long. And the physiology is there's almost like a roundedness, and the joints are configured in such a way that her back legs are an engineering marvel, okay? And then coupled with the physiology of her back legs is if you were to look at the musculature of Dandelion, like the majority of her muscle is right there in the back part of her body, fueling those legs, which means that Dandelion's back legs are like a rocket ship. Like there's so much power. It's like a springboard of power that is inherent in her 2 back legs, which means that Dandelion has the superpower given by her Creator to go from 0 to full speed in the fraction of a second. Blink of an eye, Dandelion can be gone if she wants to. And let's hope it doesn't happen this morning in front of us, okay? It'd be really weird, okay? Now, some of you guys are car people, and that's really cool, but in the car world, if you have a car that can go from 0 to 60 in like 4 to 5 seconds, that's like a really good car. Dandelion can go from 0 to full speed in a fraction of 1 second. She is an engineering marvel, a testament to the wisdom of her Creator. Now, DJ, can you introduce our predator on the scene? Okay, now let's say, here's how Dandelion's superpower will work out in the world that most rabbits habitat, where most rabbits live, okay? So let's say that the Dandelion is not on a table, but she's out in the field and she's grazing on grass and dandelions and beautiful flowers, and she's living her best life now, right, out in the field. And then on the scene, then the bobcat shows up, okay? Now when the bobcat shows up, here's what will not happen. And I don't care how many nature documentaries you have seen, maybe you've seen a lot, but you will never see this. You could spend the rest of your life watching PBS or nature documentaries on whatever your favorite channel is. You will never see this happen on screen, where a bobcat shows up and the rabbit's in the field, and then the rabbit then says to the bobcat, "Hey, you want a piece of me? Let's fight." right? That was my best like junior in high school fight taunt, okay? But you're never gonna see the rabbit see the bobcat and say, "What's up? You wanna go a couple rounds?" You're not gonna see it. I don't care how many documentaries you consume. You will never see that happen. Here's what you will see happen. Bobcat shows up, and let's hope Dandelion doesn't see the slide, because it's gonna get real weird if she does. But as soon as the bobcat shows up in real life, in a real field, then what Dandelion will do is she will align her decision-making with her creator-given superpower. And those back legs that are obnoxiously long and very well crafted will couple with the incredible musculature that is arming those back legs, and in the fraction of a second, Dandelion will be gone in the other direction, right? And generally speaking, Dandelion is equipped to make it away from the bobcat, right? So here's the thing that I want us to understand, that Dandelion has the creaturely wisdom to align her decisions and actions with the superpower that her creator has given her. It's very important that we understand that, okay? So important, let me give you another example from the natural world, okay? Here, again, back to the nature documentaries. I don't care how many you've seen. Here's one that you were never going to watch. You're never going to see a cameraman film a hippopotamus lumber its way up to the top of a mountain where there is a sheer face cliff of several thousand feet. You're never going to see the hippopotamus survey the landscape thousands of feet below, see a little morsel of something to eat down below, and then jump off the cliff. You're never going to see a hippopotamus do that, ever, 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 ever. I promise you that. But what you will see in the nature documentary is you will see an eagle alighting itself in a very high place, sheer cliff of thousands of feet. You will see the eagle survey the ground below, and when it sees something that it thinks looks attractive to eat, then you will see the eagle jump off of the cliff and glide down to find that tasty morsel of something. Right? So I'll say that one more time, now different analogy. That the hippopotamus will never jump off of a cliff in search of food because it has the wisdom to align itself with its superpower. The eagle will jump off of the cliff in search of food because in so doing, it is aligning itself with its creator-bestowed superpower. Okay? So I want us to see this and to really understand this. In the natural world all around us, the creatures of God have all been given unique superpowers. And all of them instinctively and intuitively will align all of their lives with the superpower that their creator has given them, 100% of the time. Okay, now here's why I think that's really interesting for us this morning. Because every single person in this room that I see right now, including myself, if I can look at myself, we are all infinitely more intelligent than Dandelion. Don't feel offended for her. She has no idea what I'm saying, okay? We are way smarter than Dandelion. We're way smarter than the hippopotamus that does not jump off the cliff. We're way smarter than the eagle that does jump off of the cliff in search of food. Yet why is it that so often we have such a hard time aligning our lives and our actions with our uniquely bestowed upon superpower gifts that our Creator has given to each and every one of us? Okay? That's an interesting question that I think that we need to lean into. Now, what I've just described for us is so basic, it's so common sense that we all think, yeah, I do that. I live according to my strengths and my superpowers, and I try to minimize my weaknesses. I don't pick fight with bobcats and such things. That's just ridiculous, right? Let me give an example from maybe your childhood that you will understand and maybe see that we don't quite get this right with our lives quite yet. When you would receive your report card as a child, all right, you have 8, 9, 10 grades on your report card. Think about when you look at those grades regarding yourself and your parents or whoever your guardian was growing up, which of those grades on your report card received the most attention? The really, really good ones or the really, really bad ones? Anybody? Because I just want to hear it. Yeah, the bad ones, right? As soon as you saw your grade card, like you looked for the worst one. And oftentimes, like your parents would see the worst one. And then what would you spend the next semester doing? Where would you spend the majority of your study time and your reading time and your research time? Where would you then spend the majority of your time? On your greatest grade subjects or your worst grade subjects? Right? The answer is your worst, right? Because your teacher would next to that grade put like a little NI, needs improvement. I know that because I received a few of those, right? Just some classes that I didn't excel in, and the little NI, needs improvement, would go next to that, which means that the classes that Brian did well in, okay, we're good, just keep going, keep doing your thing, whatever you did, there is enough. But now where we need to put extra focus is in the arena of the thing that Brian or that you are struggling in, okay? So we spend the least time often in the things that we're the most gifted at, and the most amount of time improving our weaknesses in the areas where we struggle. But just a couple, all right, here's a couple questions for us. Here's the first. In what arena do you think your greatest contribution to the world will come? In the arena of the grades, the arena of the subjects where you struggle the most? Or will your greatest contribution to the world come in the arena of the subjects where you actually excelled and the subject matter came the most easily and naturally to you? I would venture a guess that if we're designed by the Creator and each of us have unique superpowers, then maybe one of the ways we would discern and hone in on what those superpowers are is when like something just comes naturally and instinctively to us. We just kind of get it, and we understand it. Then maybe if we start to explore and pursue those things, that's how God has made us to bless the world and our family and people around us in really pronounced ways. And maybe the thing that we just bash the book into our head, or the subject that we'll just never ever master, no matter how much we work at it, maybe that's not the arena in which our greatest contribution will come. Right? Let me put it in concrete form like this. Is it okay for Shakespeare to be not very good in algebra? Is that okay? Like, maybe, let's go back in time, and let's say that young Shakespeare is struggling in math. He likes to write, and brother just spends all his time writing. But he's struggling in algebra, and then his teachers and his parents, and they recognize that this is an area that needs improvement. What if Shakespeare's parents and teachers then spent like the next 10 years of his youthful life saying, you have got to get your algebra up. Stop writing stories. Stop reading literature. Stop crafting language. You're already okay at that. Spend your time getting your algebra down. I don't know if that serves the purposes of the world, and I don't know if that's Shakespeare aligning himself with his Creator-given gift. I think, just want to speculate here, that it's okay for Shakespeare to be all right at algebra and to not spend all of his time there, but to spend a whole bunch of his time reading and writing and exploring the literary scene, because clearly that aligns with his Creator-given superpower. And maybe Shakespeare's greatest contribution will come in the realm of literature. And it absolutely did. One more thing. How about, is it okay for George Washington Carver to get a C- in geography for the rest of his life? He doesn't know the capital of Montana. Is that a crime? Or should we work on that for the rest of George Washington Carver's life? Or maybe instead of working on his geography, maybe we could encourage him to take that time and that energy and those resources that he has and to actually apply them into the natural sciences. Because boy, it seems like the brother's got a natural inclination for that kind of stuff, and that we need him out in the fields, and we need him like exploring and researching and doing experiments, because right, it seems as if George Washington Carver's his superpower is in the sciences. His greatest contribution to the world will probably, and it was, be in the realm of the sciences. So maybe it's okay that he can just get by in his geography class with a C-. Right? Does this make sense to us? Right? But this is this thinking that God, the Creator, gives magnificent gifts to his creation, and that in our animal level wisdom, our creature level wisdom, that we would begin to operate in those superpowers. It actually is not as easy to do that in our lives as you would think and as we would hope. Right? I want to illustrate that again one more time here in 1 Samuel chapter 17. If you have your Bibles, turn there. We're just going to look at a couple of verses here. 1 Samuel chapter 17. In this passage here, it's the iconic story of David versus Goliath. We're going to ignore most of the story. We have talked about it here. Pastor Coach Kemp has talked about this, but I want to just hone in on one particular part of this story to get us out of the gate in this new series that we're in entitled Superpower. Right? The idea that the Creator bestows all of his unique creations with magnificent superpowers. Okay? Now, 1 Samuel chapter 17, it's David versus Goliath. The scene that I want to advance forward to is the place where David is just ready to walk out and pick a fight with Goliath, the giant. He's ready to go, right? The battle is about ready to start. David is ready to leave the army of the Israelites and go out, and he's ready to make this thing happen, okay? And that's where we find verse 38. Now catch what's going on here, friends, because this is really interesting. David's ready to go out and fight, and then here's what happens. Then Saul clothed David with his armor. Okay, and the pronoun his is not referring to David's army. His is referring to Saul's armor. So Saul, the king, is fitting David in Saul's armor. Then he put a helmet of bronze on his head and clothed him with a coat of metal. And David strapped his sword over his armor. Okay? So Saul says, all right, David, you're going to go fight Goliath. Here's how you should go fight Goliath. You should go fight Goliath in the way that I would have fought Goliath. That's how you should do it. But it's interesting, so what do we know about Saul? Well, here's what we know about Saul. Before he was king, Saul was identified as the tallest man, the biggest man in Israel. He was a full head taller than everybody else. So Saul, what we know of him is he's a big, strapping man. He is strong. He is tough, right? So in Saul's creator-given superpower, there is size and there is strength. And so it makes great sense for Saul, when he fights someone, to throw on the armor. Because Saul can carry it, and he can still move. He's still swift, and he's quick. Right? It makes sense for Saul to put the armor on. It makes sense for Saul to put on the shield, because brother, he's got the physical abilities to carry that thing. And then it makes sense for Saul to carry his sword, because he can wield that thing, even though it's heavy. He's a strong guy. And then a bronze helmet. Anybody ever put a bronze helmet on their head before? They're heavy. Bronze is a heavy metal, right? It makes sense for Saul to put a bronze helmet on his head, because he can handle all of this. And for the individual who can carry all of these things, it is a strategic advantage in battle to have these things rather than not have them. So in Saul's superpower, Saul thinks, right, the best way to fight somebody is with sword, shield, armor, bronze helmet. So when David is getting ready to go out and fight the giant, then Saul says, all right, David, here you go. Take my helmet, take my sword, take my shield, take my armor. And Saul superimposes all of these things on to David, right? But nobody here in this scene is asking the question. No one's asking this question. Is this the best way for David to go fight Goliath? I don't see that question on anybody's mind. Nobody's asking it. And here's what I want us to see. That people will put pressure on you to live and to act and to do outside of your superpower, but in a way that makes sense to them. Right? People will put pressure on you to live, move, and act, to do all the things that we do in life. People will put pressure on you to do things the way they think you should do it, rather than maybe the way that God made you to do it. Okay, now I want to illustrate this even a little bit deeper here. Because we know later in life there is some competition from Saul to David. Saul, right, later in life, Saul's looking to kill David. But right now, I just want us to be very clear that Saul is 120% motivated to see David succeed. We'll talk about this in a second. But Saul has every reason to want David to go out and to defeat Goliath rather than being defeated by Goliath. Which means that Saul really believes that the best thing for David, the best thing for Israel, the best thing for God's people is for David to go out with bronze helmet, sword, shield, armor. He truly and really believes that is the best thing for everybody except Goliath. The problem is it's not. So now nobody is asking the question, is this the right way for David to go? Except for one person, David. Second half of verse 39. And he, David, tried in vain to go, for he had not tested them. Meaning he wasn't familiar with them. He doesn't know them. Let alone the fact that David's head hit the ground as soon as the bronze helmet was put on him. He's a shepherd boy, for crying out loud. This is a comedic scene. This is funny, looking at David in the armor and entrapments of a grizzled, strong, huge, seasoned veteran warrior. Okay? David is getting crushed by all of these things that have been put on him. But David tried. He tried to go out and fight Goliath. He tried in vain to do it. Okay? And then David said to Saul, praise the Lord that David had the courage to say this. David says, I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them. I don't know how to use them. Even if I did, they're too heavy. So David put them off, right? Pastor Coach talked about cast off all the things that get in the way of running the race. So David cast it off. He shreds it. Then verse 40. Then what he did is he took his staff in his hand and he chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch. His sling was in his hands, and now he approaches the Philistine. Saul had no idea what David's superpower was. The rest of God's people in the army had no idea what his superpower was, but praise the Lord, one person did. David knew what his unique creator-bestowed gifting in the realm of battle was. That David had the unique physiology to sling a stone with great precision and great speed. Have you ever noticed this? Anybody play baseball in the house? This is the fascinating thing to me about baseball. You can take 2 identical-looking individuals, similar size, similar shape, similar strength, similar everything, right? And baseball players, you know this. But while everything looks and seems to be the same, one person can throw the baseball 95 miles per hour, and one person can throw it 30 miles per hour. I don't know what the difference is. I don't get it. All I know is that they seem very comparable, yet one has the ability to sling that ball 95, which is Major League Baseball caliber, and the other can't even get it to the plate barely, right? I don't know what it is about an individual and their arm, but there's something in the physiology about throwing something. But what David has the physiology to do is there's something here in the torque of his arm. I don't know what it is. It's beyond me. But he has the ability to take a sling and stick a stone in it and get that thing humming. And literally, in the ancient world, if you had a good sling thrower, it would be humming before the rock came out, right? But David is somehow gifted to be able to sling that stone with incredible precision and with incredible force, right? And so here, then David steps out to the battle line against Goliath, not as Saul would have gone, but as David needs to go. And he takes, 5 smooth stones from the brook, puts them in his pouch, walks out, sticks one in the sling, and starts doing his superpower thing, and it starts whizzing and whirling. Everybody can hear the hum if you're close enough. And then what David does is he flings that thing across the field. In the ancient world, here's what a good sling thrower would be able to throw a rock just a little bit smaller than a baseball at 120 miles per hour. Do you know what happens when a rock the size of something just slightly smaller than a baseball at 120 miles per hour hits its target? The target's in big trouble, okay? Literally, physicists have done experiments just to measure this, that a baseball-sized stone at 120 miles per hour hits with the blunt force trauma of a bullet coming out of a Magnum 44 hitting whatever it hits, okay? So David steps up, slings this stone 120 miles per hour, and it connects square in the forehead of Goliath. And it doesn't just like, boop, like, no, it like sinks into his head, and then Goliath crumples to the ground, and God's people then have won an incredible victory. But here's what David had to do. When Saul says, David, take my armor, take my helmet, take my sword, take my shield, take all my stuff, David has the courage to say, Saul, no thank you very much. Can't do it, I can't go that way. That works for you. If you were going to go fight Goliath, that makes all the sense in the world. I know your heart is good. I know you're trying to serve me. I know your motives are pure here. I know you want to serve the people. You're trying to serve the kingdom here. You think that your suggestion is in keeping with God's wisdom, but David has the wisdom to say, no, thank you. I can't go that way because I know that I have a creator too. And as he's gifted you with strength, he's gifted me with something completely different. And so for me to go fight Goliath, I have to go fight him in the way that I have been uniquely and magnificently prepared and equipped to fight him. And David does that, and he wins. But I want to ask a what-if question, a hypothetical, because we are wondering in a curious bunch around here. But I wonder if, in this moment in 1 Samuel chapter 17, if David had not had the courage to say, Saul, no thank you very much. What if he just said, he's my king, I got to do what he says, I don't want to embarrass him here, this might look weird if I say no to the king. And then David just walks out with a bronze helmet, sword, shield, armor, all that stuff. The question is, would David have won the battle? Let me ask it differently because we're good Christian people, right? I'm going to phrase it differently now. What if David would have walked out with all of Saul's armor things and faith boiling and bubbling out of his heart that God, who had promised to protect his people, would. And that if David even walked out in Saul's superpower, not his, that this faith that he had in his God, in Yahweh, that faith would deliver him. David, faith, plus Saul's way of fighting, how would that have turned out? Well, the answer to that hypothetical question is we will never know. And do you know why we will never know? Because David had the same sense as Dandelion the rabbit. David had the same amount of wisdom as the hippopotamus that doesn't jump off the cliff. David had just the wisdom enough that is on par with the eagle that jumps off of the cliff and spreads its wings to do its superpower. David had that much wisdom to know that I need to step out in the way that God has made me to step out. We will never know what would have happened because David didn't step out foolish, right? But let's explore that for a second. Because we're the people of faith. We trust God, don't we? But I think we have such a misunderstanding of how that actually works itself out in this very complicated and beautiful world that God has made. Right? I want us to be very clear on this. Right? That let's say that faith is the only ingredient necessary for David to defeat Goliath. If faith is the only ingredient necessary, then here's what David probably should have done. Hey, Saul, I'm going to go fight Goliath. No, I don't need your armor. Tie my hands behind my back. Tie them. Because God's going to do this. And because God's going to do this, I just want to highlight the fact that God's going to do it. And then David could have stepped out with his hands behind his back, not knowing what's going to happen, and then just wait for him to kick Goliath in the midsection, I don't know, do a roundhouse something where he just takes Goliath down, right? That roundhouse kick was awesome. I think it put my hip out of place there on that one. Okay, so, but he didn't, that's not what faith is. Faith is not saying, I'm going to go out with my hands tied behind my back. David didn't say, all right, Saul, keep your armor stuff. I'm going to go out with my sling, but I'm going to show you how much faith I have. Blindfold me. Put a blindfold on me right now and then send me out because I just trust that God, who made promises to our people to protect us, that he's going to come through. And I just want to show everybody as clearly as I can demonstrate that with a blindfold on and my sling, I'm going to defeat this giant. No, David didn't do that either. What he did is he walked out with faith and with his superpower, both combined, not at odds with one another, not competing with one another, with faith fully bubbling out of his heart that God's going to provide and protect and defend, just like he said he would, and operating in the creaturely design that his beautiful Creator has given him and bestowed upon him. Those faith and wisdom, friends, go together. They are not at odds with one another. Okay, can I say that again? Faith and wisdom are not at odds with one another, but in God's design they go together, which means that as we follow Jesus in our discipleship, we're going to have to walk with faith boiling out of our hearts, believing all the promises that he's given us, and we're going to have to walk with wisdom. And what that means is we're going to have faith and we're going to walk in our unique superpower. Because operating out of our superpower is just base level creature wisdom that every creature that God has made operates out of. And we need to do the same thing. I'll put it in a different way, right? That faith and wisdom go together. Think back on the feeding of the 5,000 people, okay? And this is like, the disciples don't have a ton of faith at this point, but Jesus is like incubating their faith and he wants it to grow. And so when there's a crowd of people, what Jesus does, like he knows they're hungry. The disciples say, hey, everybody's hungry, let's send them home. Jesus just doesn't say, all right, guys, I got this, just go sit down. What Jesus does is he invites them into the process of helping him feed the 5,000 people. And then it's interesting what the disciples do. The disciples come back and they say, hey, Jesus, here's what we got. We got 5 loaves and 2 fish. Right? Here's what I want us to see. That at that moment, the problem is we've got thousands of people to feed. We got nothing to do it with. But Jesus invites the disciples in, and they do a little survey. What do we got? What do we have? What do we see? What do we, right? The best thing that they had to offer that had the most potential to feed the thousands of people that were there was the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. Is that enough to do the job? No, absolutely not. But it's the best they had, meaning that when Jesus said, hey guys, help me, well, let's feed these guys, the disciples did not then say, oh, okay, Jesus, here's my sandal. Take my sandal and do something with it and feed the people. Because a sandal has no ability to feed anyone. There's no inherent feeding possibilities in a sandal. Right? The disciples didn't say, hey, Jesus, here's my cell phone. You can do anything. Take my cell phone and multiply it and we'll all have a cell phone lunch. Okay? They didn't do that. They took the closest thing to a superpower that they had, 5 loaves and 2 fish. The only thing they had on hand that actually was able to satisfy hunger. It just wasn't enough. They took the best that they had and they offered it to Jesus. And then in faith, right, then Jesus does what Jesus does, and he takes their superpower, which isn't a whole lot, but it's the best they got. He takes their 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he multiplies it, and then, right, and then the miracle happens. And everyone receives not just as much to fill them, but more, and there's food left over. Oftentimes, I wonder if, instead of giving Jesus the 5 loaves and 2 fish, the best thing that we have available to do the job, if we're giving him our sandal, we're giving him our phone, we're giving him the wrong thing, because we have not fully understood that faith plus wisdom is the equation that we are called to operate in. We're followers of the King, but we're also designed by the Creator, and those are not at odds with one another. What I hope happens in this series is that you and I would begin to recognize that we have been given incredible gifts, and that we would actually start to live in the light of the wisdom that is, put these gifts into play. Start walking in them. Stop trying to be your neighbor. Stop trying to be the person that you thought was this incredible person when you were growing up. They've been uniquely and magnificently made by God to do unique and magnificent things. You were made unique and magnificent in different ways to do different things in different ways. And we've got to start honoring the design of the Creator and believing that we ourselves are part of that beautiful design, and we got to start bringing the best of what we have and saying, God, I trust you. I know that you are doing work in me, that you've promised to rescue me and forgive me, and you've got a future for me, and you're going to empower me. You're going to bring victory in my life. You're going to bring like healing in my relationship. You're going to do all of these things. And as we trust him to do that, we're also bringing our best to him so he can take our best and multiply it in only the way that he can. Right, here's the last thing that I want to say to us regarding, right, these superpowers that we have been given here, week one in this series. That as people, right, we've got to start developing skills that are in line with the superpowers that the Creator has given us. We must develop skills that fit the powers that he has given us. Because it's not just enough for David here in 1 Samuel 17 to say no to Saul. Saul, no to your armor, no to your bronze helmet, no to your shield, right? It's not enough for him to say no. He has to have something to say yes to. And David's got a powerful yes to say to. But the reason he's got a powerful yes in terms of grabbing the sling and the stones is because what David has been doing for years is he has been developing the skill of throwing a stone out of a sling. Working on that thing for years and years. Because here's how it would have worked out. David, the shepherd boy, right? I don't know if you've ever been around sheep. I've never been a shepherd. I can just hypothesize that when the sheep are eating the grass, there isn't much for you to do. And what David could have done is he could have got on his cell phone. He could have been scrolling for 12 hours a day. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Mindless, droning, nothing, amused. Laughing, sharing. Nothing here, right? David could have spent all day, every day just napping and doing no things. But here's what we know about David, is that while the sheep were doing their thing, that David was actually like developing skills that actually fit in with his Creator-given superpowers. And so David was playing instruments. He had time. He got time to kill it, but he wasn't killing it. He was using that time to develop skills. And so he's practicing his instruments, such to the point where he gets so good that he actually then goes to play for Saul because maybe he's the best instrumentalist in the land. Why is he? Well, because he's been given Creator power that he has developed with skill, and now he's got something to offer the world. But he didn't just play his instrument while he was hanging out with the sheep. You can't just play your instrument all day. He also would get out his sling and he'd do some target practice. Hours at a time. David picks like a little branch in the tree, flinging it hour upon hour of practicing, slinging the stone. And do you know how good David got at slinging a stone because he developed this skill? Do you know how good he got? I'll tell you how good he got. He got 5 stones skilled at slinging stones. 5 stones skilled. What does that mean? Well, it means this. When David steps out for the greatest fight he's ever fought in his life, with thousands of people watching him, adrenaline pumping through his veins, a little nervous, maybe a little shake in his legs, as he steps out for that battle. Oh, by the way, this is a representative battle, meaning that David is going to fight Goliath, but they're fighting on behalf of each army and each country. And so whoever loses that side, their whole country becomes slaves of the other country. This isn't just like ESPN Fight Night here. There isn't a fight next week. This is it. This is the biggest battle that he has ever yet faced. And do you know how confident he was in his skill of slinging stones? He only chose 5 stones to take with him. That's all he took, which leads me to believe that David knew within 5 stones, Goliath is coming down. Now, if David had not spent all of his time doing something productive, building skills that are in line with his Creator-given superpower, then here's what probably would have happened. David would have gone out with faith, a lot of faith. He would have taken a sling and he would have said, hey, I need 5 guys to each of you guys get a wheelbarrow. Everybody fill your wheelbarrow with stones because I don't know how this thing's going down, right? I got some power, but my accuracy's not really good. And I'm just hoping that if I can throw 5,000 stones, maybe one of them will hit the mark. I'm hoping. No, he was a little more sure about his skill set than that. He was 5 stone skilled, meaning that within 5 stones, Goliath is going to come down, even in this most epic and intense of moments. But it didn't take 5 stones. It took 1. So he's actually 1 stone skilled. And so God delivers Israel that day because one individual walked out with faith overfilling his heart that God was going to come through in the ways that he had promised to come through for his people. But he didn't just walk out with faith. He walked out not in Saul's manner of fighting, but he walked out in his superpower fighting style. And in his superpower fighting style, he had been developing that skill for years behind the scenes that nobody watched. Nobody was aware of, nobody witnessed, to the point where nobody knew that this was his superpower except for David. And then David steps out, and somehow faith plus his wisdom to align his life and his actions with his creator-given superpower, there is the victory. That's when the victory comes through. That's where God provides and God's people are released from the tyranny of the Philistines. So we have, right, God has given each and every person in this room superpowers. They are there because God doesn't mess around with his creatures. And we are human beings, which means we're made in his image. So we're even more special here than dandelion, more special than the eagle, more special even than the hippopotamus, which are awesome, right? And there are gifts inside of us that we've got to unpack and identify. And as we do it, we must have the courage to walk in them and develop skills that go with them so that we can be the faith-filled people and the wisdom operating people, because those go together in discipleship with Jesus. In the kingdom, they work together. Are we clear? Are we good? Okay. Band, come on back up. We've got several more weeks in this. We're excited about it. Pastor Coach is getting a sermon ready, not next week, but the week after. And we are just trusting that somehow in this series that the Lord will release us to walk in our superpowers and to grow in our skill set in these superpowers so that we can have victory exploding all around our lives and our families and our relationships and in our church and out into the community. That's what he made us for, right? Let's pray. Father in heaven, I'll break that prayer real quick. I'll take care of dandelion. You guys just go get ready, okay? Now I'm going to pray. Father, thank you for the opportunity to be your magnificent creations that gather together on Sunday. And Father, we pray that you would release us and give us the courage to operate in the unique and magnificent ways that you've uniquely and magnificently made each and every one of us. Father, we live in a world that wants us to act according to its ways and its manners. And sometimes the world and people around us mean well, but as we listen to the people around us, sometimes it keeps us from listening to you. So would you free us over these next several weeks to grow more aware of how you've made us, to grow more courageous and more comfortable in leaning and stepping into these beautiful things you put inside of us, because you made these things to come out of us for the sake of doing things in the world, bringing victory, bringing breakthrough, bringing healing. We ask that you would do it among us and allow us to be the church that operates in this beautiful giftings that you've given us. And that you somehow would unify all of these things together in a way that brings you glory. We ask you to do it for your sake and for your name and for our joy. And all of God's people said, amen.